Let's get started. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the World Health Summit. My name is Lisa Blaisdell, and I am really excited to be speaking with Cheryl Millett today, who is with us in Toronto, Canada. And Cheryl is a holistic nutritionist. And if you visit her website, which we will make sure you all have that information, you will read that it says she is a champion for better health. And anyone who's a champion for better health is a friend of mine. So, because I love that, and I like to think of myself as a champion for better health as well. So, Cheryl, thank you so much for taking your time today to talk with us and serve this community of people who are looking for better health. And the first thing I'd love to ask you is, how did this line of work unfold for you? And what led you to this incredible, passionate work that you have of helping other people with their health?
It's a good question. And I would say thank you for having me on the show. And this summit is going to be, it's quite powerful when we get to share our information with others. So I would start with, I didn't have a health challenge. I would say that I was probably guided to do this work. The question was, how could I help others? So coming from a corporate office, how could I help others, and what would I enjoy? What fields? So at the time it was be a personal trainer. Is it something in the field of nutrition? Is it the naturopathic doctor? And that got me started. It has to be somewhere around health. And then I ended up landing in nutrition and deciding more of a holistic nutrition. I didn't really like the thought of being in a hospital or some kind of that kind of a setting. Just be free too, is with information and learning. So that's where I am today. Been doing it for about 10 years full time.
Wow. That's amazing. So how do you work with your clients? Give me an example of, the kind of scope that you'll take a group or an individual through when they start working with you.
Yeah, one of the most important things we have to ask is, what's your goals? And whether they come for an hour and a half, or even 2 hours, the past several years I've done metaphysical work, or let's just focus around the mind. And that's an important piece. Now, I know not every practitioner is necessarily going to have that piece in there, and so we have to focus on what we understand best and how we can help. But I blend together the nutrition and the mind, what's going on there, especially for stress management, just to see where their beliefs are.
Right.
Then I listen to them about, yes, their goals, but just why are they here and what they can share with me. So that's an important piece, to really feel where they are with what they have, and then work with them to educate them. So wherever their goals are at, it's to bring in an element of education. So that might be one of my things I love to bring in presentations as well, is explaining to people the 7 stages of disease. It's been around for a long time. And this was something that I read one day and just jumped out of my seat and go, how come people don't know this? This would make it much easier for people's, how can I say it, their mental, to get around how all disease comes about. And yes, inflammation is the center in there. So any disease and condition has an inflammatory component.
Yep.
And I would say next to that, it's working on what's going to work for them, what it is, and I can think about it intuitively. I can think about it kind of working with my higher self and what questions I have for them. So it's really, the first part is always about learning who they are. And yes, what are their goals? I don't always have to talk about everything and anything and try to focus in on that.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say that, and then you kind of measure. You have the
Right.
symptoms, and follow-ups are all about talking about how things are going and anything new coming up and answering their questions. So one of the things I added to my consultations was, what questions do you have? They don't even have to be just related to that.
Mm.
They could have beliefs around health. And one of the pieces about, rather than just being nutrition, is actually healthy eating habits.
Right.
And it's those habits that become, it kind of sets them up for success and gets them to reduce their stress levels, because we're talking breathing, we're talking, what four-letter word is one of the most important things to do. It's free, it's easy, it's cheap, it's something that they can do anywhere and anytime.
No, I love that. And I love that you make the mindset piece such an important component, because it really does all start there. I mean,
Yes.
it really does. So do you have a typical type of patient that will seek you out? Is it, some people focus on people with cancer or autoimmune disorders, or, maybe they're just looking to up-level their health. Do you have a certain demographic of person that will usually come and find you?
It's a very good question, and I know a lot of people will rock and roll that way. That just seems to be, whether it's that program you go into to define, and I don't. So what ends up happening with me is I end up seeing people who have seen a number of other practitioners,
Oh, okay.
and they somehow find me, word of mouth, that kind of thing. So if
Mm.
people are really on a journey to health, then they find me. And so I have a whole gamut of different people that I've seen. But because I work with seal oil, and seal oil will be very helpful for neurological. And
Mm.
strangely enough, neurological isn't necessarily the thing that somebody will come to a holistic nutritionist about, but I present specifically on the omega field and healthy fats.
Okay.
So sometimes my clients are from that presentation, that they're coming in with the different neurological scenarios, and it's kind of tied into many areas, even
Right.
even the autoimmune.
Right. And also some of the neurological diseases that are so on the rise, like Alzheimer's and dementia and these types of things. Oh, that's really fascinating. So you'll focus in on the omegas and ensuring that their diets and their supplements include good foundational omegas.
Yes, now omegas are, it's kind of a scenario that it is one of the top supplements according to
Yeah.
that, there, whether it's sale and so forth. But it's healthy fats are really, there's a lot of fats are processed, so we
Mm-hmm.
have to look at where things are processed and the
Mm-hmm.
source and how effective they are, and even ancestral stuff. So fats are very important. I think a lot of people are bringing that out, even though I've been speaking about it for 10 years. We cannot, we just don't take the fats out of the food if they're there naturally.
Right.
Do the whole fat foods. At most of what I would say is that people eat too much.
Mm. In
That's
general. In general.
in general. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I did this for a number of months. I talk to it sometimes still, is the no snack movement.
Yeah.
And it's really, we don't need to eat 5 times, 6
No.
times a day, 2, 3, 3, and then depending on a person's activity level. So I think the no snack movement is, they have it in schools. We're setting up our children in daycare, even with snack time. And I don't know if it's just a distraction for the kids, but quite frankly, they should, nix that out of schools, out of daycares, and even for the average person, anybody,
Yeah.
when we think muffin and a coffee, I mean, that's half a meal right there.
Yeah.
And
And that's not really food. That's just I mean, depending on that muffin, maybe it's chock full of, whole foods and, unprocessed flours and things like that and no sugar, but you
Possibly.
possibly,
Probably
but I don't
not.
know. You'd have to, as long as it's homemade, I don't know. It's kind of hard to find a muffin that's of any
It is.
value unless it's homemade.
Yeah, there's always, I mean, that's that big play, right? It's health industry is a health industry,
Yeah.
and it's a money making industry.
Yeah.
And if you can get people thinking about having, an energy bar or a granola bar as a snack, and that's your business you're in, that's great. But for the average person who is, it doesn't need that many calories, and it's sugar, it's carbs. Yes, it might be the best granola bar, organic, full of nuts and seeds, and maybe made with honey and maybe made with coconut, but it doesn't matter. It's still calories. It's still
Yeah.
using up our vital energy. And
Yes.
that's one of the key things I usually educate people about, getting into the habit of not having snacks, not reaching for food when you're stressed, or what to reach for, and how to work with that.
Right, right. No, I love that. I think that's really important. I think here in America, we're snackaholics. I mean, people just, especially in the afternoons, I think people really struggle with that. So that's awesome that you're bringing awareness to that. So can you give me an example of, maybe someone that you've worked with in the past or, currently where they're having some kind of a struggle and, they partner with you, and kind of what the transformation process is?
Yeah, sure. Let me draw from my memory. It could be there's a couple of different scales here. I'll focus on one of my recent clients, because that's so somebody's coming in. They have been on antibiotics recently, and they actually have an issue with the fungus in their mouth, oral thrush. And so that's a scenario where the antibiotics had a play in it. You're not quite sure what their scenario is all about it, but this was a person who was a member in my walk club and had a question for me. So then it just led to, you have to explore more about what they're doing and feel out what's going to help for them in the near term. So that was that specific focus. That was her goal, is to get rid of that. Right. And it is balance the body naturally. Yep. So I gave her some seal oil, which is excellent. And now we're just going to do, we're going to do a day of fasting.
Oh, cool.
Break and changing up the food that's in the fridge. And she's sitting with 3 or 4 things to kind of focus on, some bone broth and just very clean, like just very real food.
Right.
Real food and some, so I give her a protocol, and I always email my clients afterwards with a summary of that, rather than leave it to them to have taken notes, which they do. Some do, some don't. Depends on where they are. But I just summarize it for them in an email.
So you are a proponent of the fasting, because I've been learning a lot about this in the last year, and I'm really fascinated with it, and the benefits that it has to our immune system and our gut health, which is our immune system. So is that a protocol that you'll, find yourself putting your clients and patients on?
It'll all depend on where they're at. Some just, you say fasting, so I never want to. I don't have what I call a drawer full of protocols. You've got this, you're just going to do that. With people who are open to it because of the thing that's they're going through, then great. And maybe it's just a half day. Maybe it's a full day. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's something where they're just having 2 meals a day, or they're eating between certain hours. I've certainly taken people through the liver gallbladder flush. Numerous times, teaching them. And quite often they'll come to me because they want to do it, and because that's one of the things I specialize is in digestion. I can teach them and be there for them so that they can call me if they need to.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. And I love that you have everything so, beautifully tailored towards what they want and what their needs are.
Mhm.
And, obviously it's not just a one size fits all for every
Never.
single person because it can't be. Yeah, it can't be. So, how can people find you? How can they learn from you, especially if they are not in the Toronto area? Because it
Mhm.
does look like you are deeply embedded in your community, which I love, and you're helping your community huge, I'm sure. But for our viewers and the people who are going to be receiving this interview that are all over the United States, Canada, and possibly the world,
Yeah.
how can they find you and continue to learn from your wisdom?
Yes, that's a great question. And there are a few different ways to learn. Uh, I'd say they can go to my website, cherylmillett.com. One of the things I try to do wholeheartedly is put they call them blogs or articles together
Yeah.
so that they can absorb the information, resorb the information. It's there for them when they want to go back to it, if they want to remember it. And they can sign up for the newsletter to understand when they come out. And there's a whole host of information just on healthy fats and
Oh, cool.
omegas, a
Oh,
whole
cool.
section of itself, because I lecture to doctors and to other practitioners. So I've listed the research there, and then they can see. You mean nerves grow back? Yes, nerves can grow back. So I
Mm,
would say there's the contact there as well, and I'm happy to. What I usually like to do, because I think this is a very valuable thing, is give a 15-minute. Now it would be a call or Skype or something
right.
to explore what do they have going on and can I help them.
Right.
So I think that's very valuable for people to know. Why would people want to put money out if they really don't know if this person can help them,
Right.
and if they're
Right.
in sync and answer their questions and things like that. So that's also a way to kind of step into it, is to set up something like that, a 15-minute. So next to the blogs and
Yeah.
learning all about, because I talk about the 5-finger philosophy, the 7 stages of disease, and just recently I put Herring's law of cure so
Mm.
that they can go through it. It's very, it's all good information, and some of it is the basis for the book that I'm writing.
Oh, okay. Good. I was going to say, do you have anything coming out soon? Any books or anything? So perfect.
Yeah, that's All Guts, All Glory is the name of the book.
Ah,
And it's a take of many different things, but it is exploring doctors from the past and what they knew. And it's almost not shocking, but it's very fun to find that they knew things back there that I'm just
mm,
hearing doctors and specialists say today going, well, I think it's this. Well, the whole thing is we have two paths. We have the alternative,
yep.
or one path, the holistic, and we have the other path, which is the medical. And even though these were doctors in the past, they were definitely down the holistic path,
Yep.
and they knew things, but it really wasn't the mainstream of the way people looked at things. So I think it's
Right.
very important that people take both. In a
Right.
lot of ways, they can go to one versus the other, but they, just knowing that both paths kind of look at things differently. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's great. Well, I'm sure that your book is going to be a huge resource for people,
mhm.
because truly, I think although we have a lot of work to do, there's certainly a movement back towards this holistic, natural, way that the doctors of the past were probably implementing, just because that's all they had. And it's gotten a little confusing over the last century or so, or half a century or so, and now we're hopefully taking the tide back in the other direction, because I think people truly want to be well. They truly want to be well. They want it to be simple, and they don't want to get caught up in the disease process, because it's
Yeah.
really, it's just not a place where you want to be. So therefore, having educators and practitioners like you that are out there, with this education. And I love that your focus is so much on education, Cheryl. I think that's so great, because then people can be empowered to make the changes. And,
yeah.
And
I
really,
want to be out of a job, Lisa. I mean, that's what I've mentored some practitioners, and I say we should be out of a job, and they their eyes go big. I said, but it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. I mean, my father went through a heart attack and quadruple bypass. That was experience. My mother went through cancer.
Wow.
And his experience was interesting, and they really are, pushing the meds on people. I had a client, one, she had 19 medications. 19.
Wow.
And it was another fellow practitioner who brought her grandmother. As a grandmother. And so I asked her, why don't you come in and sit in with this? And it came down to her partner, spouse had passed on, and she didn't really have any, huge passion to live. So she was doing her volunteer work. And when I asked her, did she know what all this medication was for? She says, no, I'll just do whatever my doctor does. But what that showed was, her will to live. I mean, your will to live and to be healthy, it's an important piece of it. But some people don't know where to turn. They don't know who to ask. They don't realize how things is. Even with my father coming home with the meds, I went up to his home and I looked through the med list, and there was 2 drugs on there that all the other drugs said what they were, how long you needed to be taking them for, how to take them, and what they were for. And there was 2 on there that didn't have anything as to how long, what it was for. And when I went to the pharmacist, they were 2 psych drugs.
Wow.
So we didn't fill them.
Yeah.
I didn't fill them. And he says, well, he was agitated in the hospital. Well, you would be too. You go through a quadruple bypass. He was asleep.
Of course. He
was asleep for a week. And it was, he's detoxing. He's a smoker and so forth. But it didn't, you don't get a feel for these things unless you're immersed in it. And even though he didn't have high cholesterol, which is what the doctors will say, most of the people that end up with heart attacks, it's not because they have high cholesterol. Their cholesterol is good. So, but they wouldn't take him off that med while he was in there. They wouldn't take him off blood pressure. He was fine in those areas, but they have a formula that they have to give them when they come in, end of story. And if not, take them home.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, with that, Cheryl, I just want to thank you so much for the work that you're doing, for the mission that you're on, and for taking time to share some of your wisdom, which is expansive. I could talk to you all afternoon. So I will make sure that everyone gets to your website, CherylMillett.com, and we will really look forward to your book. And thank you again for just being a champion, like you said, a champion for better health and for all the work that you're doing to help so many people. And thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you for doing this. And
absolutely. We can do it together as a community.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.